I'm super excited to bring on Amanda today to talk all about the importance and the benefits of IV therapy, something that I actually wish I had access to when I was dealing with all my mold and health stuff years ago. It was like, oh, it really was like non-existent here anyway. So I cannot tell you, Amanda, how excited I was when I first met you and learned about Vivid Mobile and all of that. And love that I can get an IV in my house to boost my health. So I'm going to have you answer some questions. I reached out to my audience recently and was like, okay, guys, here's topics we're going to talk about. I want to know what questions you have, so I make sure that we are answering those. So let's start off, Amanda, with what is IV therapy and what can be some of the amazing benefits of doing IV therapy?
Yeah, great question. So, like you said, IV therapy is kind of newer. Even just like a year ago, 2 years ago, especially with us being here in the Midwest. I like to joke with people. I'm like, usually the Midwest is kind of the last to learn about things, while the coast has been running with the idea of IV therapy for years and years and years. But really, what IV vitamin therapy is if you think about going to the hospital or like urgent care in general, when you are sick, you're depleted, you're dehydrated. And you've probably heard of the term banana bag, where you're getting boosted back up, you feel amazing, you go home. Well, that concept has been brought more so into different clinics, into homes, like you said, where we can come directly to you. And you absorb those vitamins and nutrients at nearly 100%. So a lot of individuals are going to feel the effects a lot better without having to go into, per se, an urgent care visit or an ER visit. We actually have a wide array of different IV cocktails, if you will, around 30, but traditionally speaking, we kind of hang out around 5 because usually that amount or those specific IV infusions are great for anybody and everybody. When you're looking at benefits, like I said, you're absorbing those nutrients at nearly 100%. So if you are looking at traditional supplements, there's some amazing supplements out there that have great research and science to back them in terms of absorption rate. But there's other ones out there, if you're just heading to your local Walgreens or pharmacy, where if you grab it, you're probably looking at 5, maybe 30% absorption rate. Especially if we are, I'm sure you guys have heard Erica talk about probably gut health in the past too. If we don't have good gut health, you're just not going to absorb it. And so when you're looking at IV therapy, it does bypass that digestive process. So your cells can fill up. What I like to tell people is think about during the time of your IV therapy, your cells are filling up with all those necessary vitamins and nutrients. And then typically what we see is about the absorption and the length, I guess you could say, that it lasts in your system is kind of around that 2 to 4 week mark. So as those cells are starting to turn over, die off, new cells are starting to come about. That's when we need that boost again. For myself, specifically, I actually do IVs about somewhere around that 2 to 3 week mark. We definitely recommend consistency of that because that's really when you feel the difference. And usually around, like, we'll just say that 2.5 week mark for myself, I'm like, okay, I'm not sleeping as good. I can tell my inflammation is creeping back up. I'm dragging my metabolism. I don't have that energy boost. And so getting that IV at that point too, just really boosts you up.
Yeah, I love IV. And I also, like you said, I feel like it's so good for people that are dealing with health issues because
Mhm.
especially gut related things, because we can bypass having to
Yes.
absorb while you're working on absorption.
Yeah.
I've seen IVs do wonders with clients. I mean, I feel the difference myself, not always necessarily like right away. Sometimes it's like
What I was
a
gonna
little
say. Yep.
lag in a couple of days, but just
Yep.
like a little side note, like I'm working on getting my Core Athletica level 1 instructor training course, like filling in the pieces, getting it all online. And I was just having a hard time focusing because like there's 1,000 things going on with me getting my
Right.
studio ready. And I'm like, but I love instructor training. And so it's like, I just needed that little focus. So I did the brain one last week and I have been
Yeah.
on fire this week, Amanda. So you
Awesome.
guys, it's
I
amazing.
love it.
We're going to talk about NAD too, because NAD is one of
Yes.
the things. But I just think the
Yeah.
benefits can be so amazing. And recently I had Dr. Aaron Hartman on talking about hypermobility and how people who are really more hypermobile can really benefit from more minerals and nutrients. And so I think that
Yep.
this can be a really good way. Again, we don't want to necessarily like be relying on IV therapy, but it can be a really great way to add boost when you are working to heal your body or you want to give your body an added boost. And this is why we're going to move in and talk about the power of vitamin C, because you have vitamin C is in a lot of the main ones that you do, like the Myers
Mhm.
cocktail. And if you want to talk about some of those, but especially like here,
Sure.
we're moving into the winter months. People are indoors more. We need that extra, or we could really benefit from that extra immune.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, I can't talk right now. The extra immune boost. So, can you
Yep.
talk about again IV therapy from an immune function? Helping with prevention, even recovery if you are sick,
Yeah.
and obviously, like vitamin C can be a big one for that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to kind of go back to where you mentioned too, and this is going to lead into like our immunity talk and vitamin C, where you said sometimes there's that lag that you feel. And that's me too. Sometimes people can be sitting literally in the IV chair and they're like, oh my gosh, I completely feel a difference. I already feel better. A lot of times, though, it's a day, 2 days later, maybe a little bit longer. But I also tell people, because I've heard this, like, well, gosh, I just didn't feel anything from it. I'm not sure if I noticed anything. And sometimes when we are super depleted, and we do need to work on other things like your whole foods, like your gut, and just adding in different things there. You might not notice a difference in the first infusion, maybe not even in the second or third infusion. Sometimes it takes a couple, I like to say, to like get your levels up there and really fill up your tank. And that goes too into like preventative care as well as active like sickness. So a lot of times when you can help prevent, especially as we're going into the cold and flu season and just the cold weather, I'm like, why is it winter already here? The more that you can support your immune system and your body now, yeah, you might get a little cold, which is great. We actually want our bodies to get a cold every now and then, so your body knows how to fight off those different infections. But your body can recover a lot quicker, and you might notice that those symptoms last a lot less. They're not severe. And so when you're looking at specifically vitamin C or like an immune boost, like you said, a lot of our different infusions have vitamin C within them. Vitamin C is a huge, powerful antioxidant. It's huge. We utilize it for infections, for immune boost. And what we find too is a lot of individuals, especially if they're dealing with more chronic infections, more chronic viruses, their body's eating that up left and right. And so sometimes we got to boost that up a little bit more. And again, going back to, there's a lot of just different vitamin C's on that you can go and get at your pharmacy, or if you think of emergency and just different things to boost up kind of that vitamin C level. Well, again, if we're looking at needing to support our gut health, we need to be able to get those vitamin C levels in a little bit more. So specifically, we have an immune boost or immunity that focuses on a little bit increase in vitamin C, as well as B complex. So you're looking at 5 different B vitamins there, as well as zinc. And so that's a good one for whether you're looking at preventative or you are actively sick. Myers has a decent amount of vitamin C in it too. I like to say that that's kind of everything but the kitchen sink, because that's going to have your B complex, methylated B12, as well as vitamin C, and then magnesium, which magnesium, at least half of the population is depleted in. We all need some of that magnesium. So that's a good one. But we also work very closely with our clients to determine what their best need is in that moment. So if somebody just has some sniffles, the immunity infusion is great for them. But if we're looking at a little bit, they have some more like moderate to severe symptoms, or like, not colds, COVID or flu, we boost that vitamin C up there a little bit more to help detox that virus out of the system a little bit quicker. So vitamin C is like one of my favorite. We also do very high doses of vitamin C depending on the clientele that we work with too. There's a lot of incredible things that I've seen with it to really kind of turn somebody around in a short period of time. Oops, you're on mute.
I forgot to unmute myself. I was afraid we were picking up.
Yeah.
me moving back here. Yeah, absolutely love vitamin C. Intravenously is amazing. And if you are not able to do that or in between, liposomal vitamin C is my next choice because the benefits are incredible. I've done an episode, it's been a couple of years now. I should do one again, but about the benefits of vitamin C in particular, the research, and it's really, really phenomenal. So you mentioned something, a key word I'm going to pull back out. You said detoxing, specifically more with illness, but this is something too. And I've seen with clients that were detoxing from mold and just toxicity, right? It's not uncommon when you begin IV, and please chime in and give me your perspective on this too, that you can sometimes feel worse before you feel better because we're now pushing stuff out of the cells. So this also comes down to cellular function. And so I could see it both ways, right, Amanda, where you can, because we're now putting this massive higher dose and your cells are getting access to these nutrients where previously it was harder for them because it's got to go through your GI tract to be absorbed. But sluggish cellular function is a really, really big, it's a problem today because of toxicity. And so when we all of a sudden our cells have more nutrients, then that can help to push bad stuff out of the cells as well as get good stuff into the cells. And so you can sometimes feel worse before you feel better. There's that side of it, but there's also the side that, okay, so if you don't feel anything at all, my head goes to, we need to work on cellular function. Right? Amanda, speak to both of those.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And that's something too, especially if it's somebody's very first like IV infusion with us, or if they are actively sick, whether it's myself or one of the other nurses, we definitely go through that detox potential where you might feel worse before you feel better. And it's actually a good sign that I like to see because we're getting somewhere. We're starting to work. And so we always encourage individuals to, whether they can tell that they have like a bug or not, to increase that their hydration the rest of the day. So then that way that water, ideally filtered water, just different things is going to help take that those toxins really and flush them out of your system. So we definitely talk about that too. And obviously there's other things too that you can do in terms of detoxing, which you've probably talked about as well. But even if you don't feel like you're like, oh, nope, I'm just coming in here to just like boost. I've heard a little bit about IV therapy. I just want to try it out. You still might have those detox effects. And exactly to what you're saying, like with cellular kind of capacity too, is where we want to boost those cells up and really work on. Now this is going to be a good segue into like NAD, but on that mitochondrial level, we really want to be boosting up that cellular health too, and help aid your body in the detox capabilities that it already has.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love NAD. So we'll get there in just a second. I wanted to add on one thing, and and this is something that personally I try to do. And again, it can be hard to do all these things, but again, we'll talk about them and then you do the best you can, right? Yeah. But if you have the ability after an IV to do sauna, I think that's super powerful because we've really kind of primed your cells. And now that far infrared sauna is going to help to continue to help push out even more junk. So from a detox perspective, it can help to minimize any potential like die-off side effects, detox, stuff like that. And then also taking a binder too is something do afterwards. So that way, if you are pushing stuff out, that you can help to bind afterwards, just to give your body a little extra assistance to pull heavy metals, just junk. We'll call it junk, whatever it is.
All the junk. It is. That's what it is. Junk. Okay.
Amanda, let's talk about NAD because I feel like NAD has become a buzzword and it's like, oh, it's the thing now to take, anti-aging, all of that. So what is NAD first and foremost? And then why should we consider doing it as an IV form?
Yeah. So let's see if I can spell it out. So NAD is short for nictamide adenosine dinucleotide. It's always like a tongue twister for me. But our bodies actually produce NAD. Now, by the time you're getting up to around the age of 40 to 50, we're actually losing around 50% of NAD that our body is just naturally producing. Again, when we're looking at like cellular dysfunction or mitochondrial dysfunction, we're losing that a little bit more. But NAD works in so many capacities. I should have like a list behind me of like all the different things that it can benefit. But first and foremost, it works on the mitochondria. And so when you think of mitochondria, short and sweet, it's the ATP, the powerhouse, our energy powerhouse of our entire body. So that leads then to anti-aging, immunity. There's been some really good research, even when you're looking at mold, when you're looking at Lyme, when you're looking at PTSD, even just brain cognition in general too. Going back to when you utilized our brainstorm infusion, that's why you're like focus, like decreased brain fog. It just works in so many different capacities. And so there's different infusions where we'll put kind of what I like to say a microdose in that. We can also utilize it in the form of like an injection. So just subcutaneous right underneath of the skin. Those are probably going to be your top two that you see. We can even do bigger bags of NAD. Now that's specific. Anybody and everybody can utilize that. So when you're talking about like kind of the hot word, if you've heard of this, it's probably it probably started out in California with all of like the celebrities because they're like, oh my gosh, it's like the fountain of youth. It's boosting that mitochondria and their cellular health. And so it's just a phenomenal option that we utilize, but we even have specific protocols too if we're looking at Alzheimer's, dementia, more chronic infections that we will utilize kind of like a protocol for to really boost up that mitochondrial health too.
Yeah, NAD is amazing, but you also want to start slow because it can make you feel, especially IV related, if you're just taking a supplement, it's probably not going to have the effects with a supplement. I've done both and I don't ever really feel as much I don't feel like a negative effect from a liposomal, but when you're putting it directly into your veins or your cells, you do just slow. For everybody to know this, I think just in case you're going to go to an IV place and they tell you want to do an NAD, don't start high dose. You always want to go low dose, and the slower, the better. Because I have done a higher dose, not your highest dose, but I've done one of the higher ones. Because with my history of mold, I was like, I wanted to try it and see what it was. And it was a little crazy. I'm not going to lie. So
it's definitely, and some people can just blast through that pretty quickly. They don't even notice an effect. But for some of us, myself included, even with like a smaller dose. So, and for instance, like one of our microdoses might be 25 milligrams or 50 milligrams. And like the bigger bag, which you received, was 250 milligrams. So that's a big difference right there. You can go up to 1,000 milligrams to traditionally speaking, I would say, us here at Vivid, we usually stick between the 250 to the 500 because we see really good results with that. And like I said, some people can blast through it, but I will say 98 probably percent of people, it's kind of like a roller coaster effect, which I tell them. We offer Zofran. Typically, we give a little bit of Zofran ahead of time because it can create almost what I like to say like gut rot, where you're just like, oh, I just don't feel very good in my gut. You might feel a little bit of pressure in your chest. You might kind of feel a little bit of dizziness, and it's just that histamine response it's going to work. What's very interesting is that some individuals will notice it exactly where that NAD needs to go to work. So if it is in their stomach, I've even had some individuals be like, gosh, my hip feels weird, or my knee feels weird. And it's because it's going directly where it really needs to focus on that too. But yeah, we definitely go over all of like, okay, you might feel like this. We start low and slow. Traditionally speaking, like with the that 250 milligram bag that you received, traditionally I tell people expect a good 2 hours. Some people can blast through it in an hour. Some people it might take 3 hours. But that's kind of generally speaking of where we're at, because we do go low and slow and definitely increase the dose based on the patient's tolerability of it too.
But as you are improving cellular function, you can increase your tolerance. Because I did notice it because I did 2 bags of the 250. And the first
Yep.
one, I remember I did have a small dose of Zofran. She only gave me 1 dose. And we
Yep.
went slow with it. I think it took me 90 minutes or something, maybe a slightly
Perfect.
more.
That's great. Yeah.
And then the second one, I didn't need any Zofran, and I felt it in my body. Like, you guys, for me, I didn't feel it in my GI tract, and I think it's because I've done so much gut work. That's my, again, these
100%.
are all theorizing. That's
Nope,
my
that's for
suspicion as
that's
to why I did
definitely.
not feel it anything in my GI system, but I felt
Yep.
it more for me in my tissue and my joints, which again, maybe I'm a fascial person. Like, I
Right.
feel things,
That's where
you
we see
know?
it.
So
Yeah.
for me, it was just very interesting to see and feel the difference. I like to try things so that I can know, like, what's it doing to me?
Yeah.
How can it be beneficial for other people? But I could tell it,
Yep.
I do feel it is something I'd like to do it again and see, because I feel
Yeah.
like, and especially when you know your health history, this is why I think this
Mhm.
IV can be so incredible. It could be the thing that helps get you over a hump, helps move you to a next
Yep.
level. And for me, that's why I've wanted to kind of experiment with it, is especially the NAD, because it can help push stuff out that's
Mhm.
stuck in cells. And when we are talking
Yes.
mold or Lyme or extreme heavy toxicity, heavy metals, things like that, I feel like it could be the piece, not a standalone, but it could be a piece that helps to really improve cellular function,
Yep.
because it's getting to the mitochondria. And you guys, just a reminder, mitochondria like is our energy source. So
Yep.
for me, I would say that I did notice a difference after both of them. The
Hmm.
first one, I felt actually probably a little bit more kind of junky, which I knew was possible because, like we talked
Yep.
about, and this is why I think this is so good to talk about for people, so they realize they don't just like, oh, IV made me feel crappy. No, you need to understand, if you do IV
Yep.
and you do feel worse, this is why. It's because you've got junk that you just pushed out of cells that now we actually need to get out of your body. And so I
Yep.
was well aware of that with NAD, that was a possibility. And I could just feel like, okay, I definitely need to do that second one, which I waited, I think, 2 weeks. And
Yep.
I felt day and night difference after that second one. So if I had just stopped
Yeah.
after that first one, we just kind of opened up stuff, and I'm continuing the detox.
Yep.
We talk about detox, and detox is so important, but doing this stuff,
Hmm.
because sometimes the stuff just gets stuck in your tissues and your cells,
Yep.
and we've got to get to it. And this can just be a really, really good source, and there's an extreme from like, just like your, vitamin C infusions all the way
Yep.
to, NAD. And I know you do a
Yes.
lot of other things as well, which we'll have to get you back on
Yeah.
another day to talk more about some of those.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
anything else around NAD or like IV therapy in general, Amanda, that you feel like we haven't hit on that you'd really like to share with everybody?
Not that I can think of. I think the biggest thing is just IV therapy can be for everybody, whether preventative or, like I said, if you're like actively sick, there's so many different reasons for doing it. We help pediatrics as well to the age of 13 on up. So I get asked all the time, like, well, what's your demographic? And I'm like, well, everybody, pretty much. Because a lot of times, even like those sick kiddos, they can get sick. They are depleted just with dehydration if they're in football or just different things. And obviously, there's a lot of things that we can work on beyond that. But it truly is for everybody. And I definitely encourage everybody to at least like give it a shot, try it. It's kind of one of the things that you can add in to what you're doing for self-care every single month anyway. And just boosting up your immune system alongside of everything else. I just think it's a great tool and a great option to add on.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's amazing. Highly recommend it. You guys, check out a place local to you. And if you're here in the Des Moines Metro, Vivid Wellness and IV is amazing.
Yes.
So check them out in
Yep.
Clive, and they do mobile to your house, which I love.
Yes.
Personally, I love that.
Yes. Yep.
Thank
Everybody
you.
does.
Thank you so much, Amanda. This has been great. And I really feel like it's going to benefit our listeners. So for everyone listening, of course, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can find Amanda. Will you share your Instagram handle so that people can find you guys
Yep.
easily?
Yep. So it's just Vivid Mobile IV. And and you did mention Vivid Wellness. We're kind of in like this not rebrand phase, but we started on a mobile IV side coming directly to you. And now we have this beautiful wellness center too in Clive that we have lots of other options too. So it eventually is going to change to just like Vivid, but right now you can see Vivid Mobile IV.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Amanda. So for everyone listening, reach out to Amanda if you have questions. And of course, you can always reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram at Erica Zeal, or of course, reply to any of my emails. And be sure to share today's episode conversation with others, because again, you just never know what one little piece of information can really be life transforming for someone else. So thank you all so much. And I'll see you back next week.
Guys.